All right. We are live. Okay. Are y'all ready now? Yeah.
Let's see. Let me get the
We are
stream
live.
up, and I believe we're starting with
Yeah.
quick intros.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Quick intros. So we don't we got a resub from Telos. Thank you, Telos. Also known as Aradiel, who's actually on the stream. That's so confusing. All right.
Telos28 just subscribed
All right.
7 months.
Quick intros.
You start. It's your channel.
My channel. All right. Well, hello. My name's Gendred. I am a variety streamer, but also a new fan of the 40K. Wow, that mini just jumped in there. The 40K universe. This is my first time reading anything about the universe. So like jumping in, this book was just, new to me and everything. So thanks for introducing me to it, Annie and Dies. And yeah, that's enough about me. Annie, you want to go next?
Yeah. I'm taking over this channel with the book club. I got into it. My husband paints minis. Telos, Aradiel is super into it and also encouraged me to read the first book, which I had neglected to for so long. But then after reading it, and all of you guys were so interested in also reading it and talking about it, that really intrigued me to like keep going. And I actually really enjoyed the first book.
Do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Do y'all hear that too, or no?
Yeah, what is happening?
Nice. I wasn't sure if that was going to come through or not. That is my bot playing audio, which actually I need to go turn off some commands real quick because that's going to be a problem. Let's go ahead and just turn off a bunch of these.
Bill O'Reilly doesn't cause problems.
Dies. Why don't you tell us what you're doing there and introduce yourself?
Okay. I was going to go last because I was going to jump into...
Never mind. We can save you for last.
Okay. Just to make that a smooth transition.
Yeah, Telos.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Telos or Aradiel. Depends on where you catch me. I have been a very long time reader of the Warhammer books. Never played the tabletop. I've only read the fluff, as they call it. I've been reading that since 2006, since sophomore year of high school. And all of these lovely people started reading Warhammer and asked me questions. And so I was just excited to talk Warhammer with more folks, with more friends. So that's why I'm here.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, you and Telos are the leading experts. And then we've got V8 who knows a lot about all the other videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm V8. I'm the reason we're here because I made a joke and everybody took me seriously. I started reading this book a couple weeks ago just because I enjoy reading lore stuff and I hadn't read any books yet. I'd only done lore stuff and I was like, I think I'm gonna start reading the Horus Heresy, and everybody else was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And it kind of snowballed into a big old group thing now. I don't have nearly the background some of these other guys do, but I've been dabbling in the lore for like 3-4 years now.
I think everybody has a good chunk of knowledge, I guess, to a degree. Me less so, but Telos and Dies for sure.
Dies.
There's me. So I'm just getting some paints ready. I am Dies. I'm just Dies often. That's what I do. I have been playing Warhammer since like the 3rd edition, like 15 years ago or so. So that's most of my knowledge of the lore comes from like the rule books and stuff as well. I never got into the actual like standalone novels as much, so this has been a great opportunity to have a reason to like go back and read some of those like old lore books that expands a lot more on like the the characters and units that I know and love from my childhood. So yeah, thank you all for doing this. It's very, very satisfying for me to get to do this with other people like yourselves.
I think it's really exciting too, because like you have game knowledge, which is like I think what this started as. Like Warhammer started as the game versus the books.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I was
And
like, I'm
I
not
can just
sure.
transition into a bit more of like the lore of the game itself, which is I think it was about 1975 when Games Workshop started as a company, and originally they made like tiny like 1-inch miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons, and eventually they said, hey, let's like make our own game and like sell the minis for that, and like that's where it starts and grows into like what we have now, where it's like like 10 editions of this tabletop game. There's lots of video games, Space Marine, Dark Tide, Dawn
And
of
new
War.
things keep coming out.
Yeah. Like
I don't actually
hundreds
know
of
the
books.
answer to this question, but did Warhammer 40K come first, or the Warhammer General Fantasy stuff come first?
You know what's funny? I actually think fuck, don't quote me on this, but I think 40K came first.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it started as
Rogue Trader.
Rogue Trader, yeah, and then
Yeah.
it transitioned. So I think it was first.
So the first module of the game was just like you were on like a space Hulk, and there was like these corridors, and you had these big, space marines that don't look anything like they do now, really, like fighting some, heinous aliens. So yeah, I mean, it started as 40K, but like I think they already had like the idea of taking it like a space fantasy route, because the early races were like demons, elves, and orcs. So pretty much like the models they were used to making already for Dungeons and Dragons, just kind of like doing the least possible in some ways.
It's
Yeah,
really
I know.
cool.
I know some stuff in the fantasy side is a lot more developed than some stuff in the 40K, like the Chaos Gods and stuff like that, were fleshed
Yeah.
out in fantasy stuff, and then they got transitioned to 40K. But that doesn't mean that 40K didn't come first. You know what I mean? So I've always been a little confused which one was before which.
Cool. I actually didn't know that bit either. That like Korn and Nurgle and stuff actually started on the fantasy side.
That was why. Oh no, I'm blanking on his name now. The fifth Chaos God that doesn't exist now. He had a name in the fantasy version, and he was in the comics.
You don't
and
mean
then
Be'lakor.
when they moved them into 40K, they didn't use him because of a rights dispute with the guy who wrote the comics, because he was under the impression that he owned that IP now because of the way people do comics, and it was used to the way IP works with like DC and Marvel and those companies, and assumed the same thing, and they didn't specify, and so they kind of backed themselves into a corner where they ended up with this big legal battle. And I think they decided it was better to just leave him out.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, Games Workshop, they're great at doing a lot by doing very little.
Yeah.
Like transitioning from
I've also heard that StarCraft was supposed to be Warhammer, and then there was a huge dispute between Blizzard and Games Workshop, and so that's why StarCraft became its own thing. So the Eldar became the
Protoss. And
yes,
Tyranids were the
Zerg.
I totally buy that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna
That's
make you all
crazy.
vibrate on my cam. I have a bit of a half-assed setup here, so.
Is anybody into the fantasy side of Warhammer, or
I
mostly
know
into-
zero about the fantasy side,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I don't know a lot about it. I've just played a couple of the video games.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's
like
what I've heard.
I think I'm drawn more towards the non-fantasy.
Yeah,
Which-
I got into the 40K stuff first, and I played a couple of the video games. I was like, oh, Warhammer. And then I was like, wait, this isn't the Warhammer I thought it was.
This is weird.
I
Why are there
will
giant
say-
talking rats? What's going on here?
Oh, yeah, this game. There is also a Warhammer RTS that is like one of the top-selling PC games of all time. So if you don't know about Dawn of War,
Yep.
goated.
And Dawn of War 2. And Dawn of
So
War
that's
3.
like-
No, we don't speak of those. Dawn of War
They
is goated.
exist, but
but Dawn of War is the best.
So that's a lot of the game. So obviously the game came first. Would you say like 1976 or something?
Oh, I actually have no idea
Or
when Rogue Trader started, or like when the first editions did either. But yeah, I started playing probably somewhere around like
1976, clearly.
early 2000s is when I think Warhammer really started to develop more of like a characteristic and like a consistency. Or like if you go look at some of like the old art and like lots of different reference images for like Space Marines are just like very inconsistent and stuff. Versus if you look at all of the materials for 10th edition, they're all extremely consistent with like how the models appear as well.
Like the ones that we see today, really.
Yeah, so like for an example, like just the cover of that book, like the Horus Rising, like dudes in the cover, like at no point ever in the game's franchise could you ever buy a miniature to build guys that look quite like those guys. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the aesthetic just did not line up. But it was also like a lot more diverse and like artists would have their own like renditions, and I actually like a lot of the old art more personally.
Now does it seem like a little bit more like cookie cutter, I guess?
Something about it feels commodified, I guess. Yeah, a little bit.
Is that why you piece together yours? Like you mix and match?
Well, I mean, I've always liked kit bashing. That probably has more to do with the fact that the first army I started assembling was orcs, or what they were one of the first ones. But anyways, back in my day, when you played orcs, they didn't have like their own tank rules, but you were allowed to use tanks from any other army in the game, and they were just called looted tanks. And so you would also like go out and buy other armies like kits, and you just had to like make them look orky. And that usually means just like covering them in spikes and like melting holes in them with soldering irons and covering them with heads. So
ta-da.
Painting them red.
Yeah. Well, painting them red makes them go faster.
That's
an
right.
important thing.
Yeah.
About Warhammer.
I tried
We'll
to
talk
find
about
an
orcs
answer.
someday, yeah.
They have made it very difficult because they're releasing a video game this year called Rogue Trader.
Ooh.
Mhm.
So now every time you try to look up a release date for Rogue Trader, it's like it comes out in December. I'm like, no, I don't want the video game. I want the other game.
One from before the internet. Why don't you know what I'm talking about, internet?
Yeah, and everything says 2023 everywhere. I'm like, no, that's not. No.
And like the official single day tournament format, I mentioned before, I have like an RTT coming up that stands for Rogue Trader Tournament. So you'll find lots of things that are not what you're looking for if you
if you Google hard enough.
Yeah, right. Because if you just say Rogue Trader, it starts talking about like stock trading and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of the problem with a universe this big, is there's just like so much content, like between the games and the books, and now there's a TV show. Like there's a lot.
Oh yeah. When I first started reading, my buddy of mine in high school just let me borrow the first Gaunt's Ghosts book, so I started with Gaunt's Ghosts, and that's it's story from the Imperial Guard perspective. And it's like that's how I started.
Didn't you say the Horus Heresy didn't come out until after quite a few books had already been written about the universe?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
40K actually came. So the Horus Heresy is like the 30K lore, and like they went back and did all of that after like 40K had been a thing for years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a prequel.
Yeah, because when I had started reading, and then like you said, such a large universe, you're kind of jumping from series to series, and they take place at different dates and times and places and stuff. And you would kind of like, you would know about the heresy, like you would be able to piece together what happens. Like you knew Horus was involved, you knew the Emperor was involved, but you didn't quite know like the context or like exactly what happened. And so it's definitely kind of like this like mythical,
even just starting this book, I was still like confused. Like I feel like I still needed some kind of like, I needed somebody to help guide me through just like the first chapter a bit, because there is so much meat in here. There's so much history.
Yeah, y'all are definitely starting chronologically. Yeah, it makes sense to start there, but yeah, y'all are definitely starting with some like serious subjects.
Okay. For the record, I found the answer. It was officially released October of '87. Was when Rogue Trader
87.
came
Yeah,
out
so
officially.
they'd been making minis for 12 years before they actually started doing any of their own game stuff. That sounds about right.
That's crazy.
Thank you for that sub, General. Welcome in. Yeah, so I agree, Annie. Like the first
General underscore annoyance just subscribed. Gender stare.
the first chapter, like reading through it a second time, it makes so much more sense. Like even in like the first couple sentences, it's like it was a delicious conceit, and his comrades would chuckle at the sheer treachery of it. I was like, they kind of tell you early on, but then like you without knowing what was going to happen, like and there's
so
a couple points
funny.
where they do that, like where they say, like they talk about how essentially they reference the emperor, but at that point they started to reference him with quotes, like, and it's just interesting.
I thought the second time around, I was like, there is a whole bunch of foreshadowing right in the first like 2 paragraphs, and I'm like, this is insane.
This whole book is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the reading it the second time is almost better, honestly.
Yeah. I'd agree.
Yeah.
Or listening to it the second time.
I found it really hard to stay on track with listening to it. That's why I had to like buy the book. But some people, the audio is better. So
yeah, it's hard to track with audio too. Sometimes I listened to it a third time today because I was still not sure on some of the stuff.
I've got both
because they do a lot of jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dice.
He'll be in the middle of talking about something, or Loken will be in the middle of talking about something, and then it'll switch to a totally different character, and telling a story like as if he's telling the story, but it doesn't say that. It just goes to something else, and it goes back to him again, and he's talking to one of the remembersers again. And you're like, wait a minute, what?
I definitely had to reach out to, like, my husband read the book, and so I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. They're using emperor in quotes. I'm like, what do they mean? Like, what's happening here? There's 2.
That detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get that on the audiobook either, because you're just hearing it, and they just keep saying emperor, and then he says they reference them, or they start referencing it with quotes, and I'm like, oh, I bet that's been in the book the whole time, and I can't hear them doing air quotes.
Yep.
Air quotes, emperor.
Which I thought was like, I was just really confused. So it's good that like we all were kind of confused, except the others who know more.
They even say it's like a 9-planet solar system
around
a yellow sun. Like they describe the solar system.
Yep.
I know when the first time I had read it, way back in the day before we had read it again for this, I had been, a veteran at that point, but I was, confused when I was like, wow, this is starting off, they're going 0 to 100 real quick. And then, you slowly, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like,
that's it. There was like, there was nothing there to like get my feet wet. It was just like, hey, this guy is going to get murdered. This is an emperor. And I'm like, well, I thought there was only one.
well, even during some parts of it, what I actually was just looking at it. It was a reference that said like this emperor, and it's in quotes in the book, could be made to understand. Is like, are they like about to go to war with the emperor that they keep referencing? Like,
right?
But yeah, the first chapter was definitely loopy the first time through.
I also would have liked to learn more about that false emperor. Like, what happened there?
Oh, he got enlightened.
Illuminated?
He was illuminated.
He was illuminated.
Yeah. Okay. Illuminated. Yes, that's right.
As Ezekiel said, I'll meet you at the feet of this false emperor. First one there gets to illuminate him. I was like, oh shit.
It goes so much harder when salamanders say that.
Oh my god.
They like to burn stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and then the I wanted to ask one question because like, and maybe y'all can just say if they get to this in the later books, then I'm good with that. But they talk a lot in the first couple like bits about how they're like saving the gene seeds of these fallen soldiers. They don't mention it a whole lot later, like during the Whisperheads or any of that stuff. But during this first section, they do. It's like, how important is that? Like, it seems like they're all clones. Yeah.
They are all clones.
Clones, not so. Clone to me is like, I think of like Star Wars. You have like the vat grown children, and like Kriegsmen. Like, that's a whole different thing. Whereas most Space Marines they start as aspirants, which means you start as a human being, and they have different means and methods, but the best of the best get put on trial. The best of the best survive those trials, and then begin the horrible, just horrifying surgical process of being turned into a man beast. Space Marines, it's stuff like you get a second heart, a third lung.
What?
Oh yeah,
there's a reason when they get stabbed and shot and stuff, they can keep going.
They
have redundancies.
Read that far.
They can sleep without going to sleep. Like, it's ridiculous.
Some Space Marines have an organ that allows them to eat the recently slain and recover some of their recent memories.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I don't know if that's limited to some or what, but yeah, V8 was telling me about that, and it's pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's limited to some of them. I think it's just some of them take it a lot more seriously than others do.
Yeah, or some of them express that.
Yeah, some of them like make it their whole like chapter thing is we're gonna be cannibals. Not be cannibals.
The whole the Space Wolf Omnibus, or it's the Space Wolf novels by William King. You follow an aspirant until he essentially becomes like a captain. So like, it's a really, really good way to see the whole process of becoming a Space Marine. And so, yeah, essentially, like he said, you're an aspirant and stuff. And then once you've kind of proven yourself, you undergo the augmentations. And then that's when the gene seed is essentially like injected into them. And the gene seed is super, super important because it's, that's how they create the Space Marines. It's how they grow these other organs and such. And it's not easy to make more. So that's why they're always trying to harvest the gene seed itself.
Recover as much of it as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can reuse it.
Right.
Wait, but
so
what does
an
that mean?
Astartes is what you described?
An Astartes?
Is a Space Marine, yeah. That's the Adeptus Astartes.
So hold on. Go back just a second. They start as men, right? I assume regular men. And then they go through all these surgeries to become Space Marines or Astartes. But like,
become Astartes. Space Marines are a different thing. There are regular Space Marines as well.
Okay.
That are just people. That stay people.
Okay. Interesting.
That don't get the genes.
Oh yeah, it gets mixed up. Yeah.
It's very confusing.
The common nomenclature is like Space Marine. You'll also hear like the general soldiers referred to as Imperial Guard. They're also referred to as the Astra Militarum. Also the same thing. So there's this convention in the universe where it's referred to as High Gothic and Low Gothic are the languages spoken, and so that's why there's so many duplicate terms essentially.
If you're selected and injected for the gene seed, then you're Astartes?
If you survive.
If you survive.
And when we say like you start as like a normal man, like we're talking children. Like a lot
like
of the
Halo.
a lot of the chapters have recruiting worlds that they go around, and a lot of them are still like feudal or Stone Age tech, and then like they'll start wars and see who lives, and then I know this children.
Is before Halo, so I feel like I'm like, oh, did Halo take some of this lore?
Probably.
I mean, generally most fantasy is pretty much based like in today's world on some form of Tolkienism, right? So I assume like the same thing happens in this sort of like war-based sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, for sure. The augmented soldiers, the super soldiers.
Did Does that mean Master Chief doesn't have any junk?
If they started out as men, gendred,
They never
then
specify whether he loses it or not. He was a child, though.
this is not a conversation for the hangout. This is a conversation for 40K After Dark.
Sorry. Off topic. Hi, Tay.
40K extra grimdark.
Extra grimdark.
And the gene seed too, as well. It comes from the Primarch of the Legion.
So okay, so from what I was understanding and what has been explained to me, it's like we have the Emperor, who then takes his gene seed and creates how many, like 13 Primarchs?
Yeah,
right?
no.
This is not quite.
Tell me-
They actually, I don't think they're going
explain.
to describe it in the book, so I'll try to do like a really quick summary of the universe where you have like a dark age of technology. The Emperor is alive in canon, like today. He's just chilling. He's waiting, and like
just subscribed.
basically thousands
Gender
of years in
D10,
the
gender
future, he
super,
starts
gender
like
D10, gender super.
after like atomic war and all these other things like really fuck over Earth. He starts gathering all of the human tribes back together, and it takes him a very long time to work on the Astartes program. But the first part of that is that he basically goes into the Aradiel, how in depth should I go into the he makes 20 sons.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
We're,
20 sons.
we're not going to go into the details of how. It's not just like they're referred to as his gene sons, but it's not actually a replication of the process that you see with the creation of Adeptus Astartes. It's
But
not like
these 20 sons are the Primarchs.
yes,
They
there
do
are
mention
20.
that in the book.
Okay.
Horus explains that in the book. He doesn't go
He
into
refers
detail,
to
but
them
he
as
explains
father.
they're in the book, and they're named after constellations.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah, because like
So-
the Sagittarius, that's the one he was supposed to be like in like vision of.
I think his vision was that he was going to need a lot of help to administer his galaxy, and so yeah, he just kind of like figured out like, okay, I've got like 20 segments I can break it up into, basically, or 21 with like the soul system being his most likely.
Well, in this book, like Horus says that the Emperor says that he would have at least one. He would have a child for every constellation of the 20 constellations is what he said. So for each one, and that's why some of them I think are named directly after constellations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he created 20 sons, the Primarchs, yes. And then by creating them, he has their gene seed, and that's why when when they're on the Great Crusade and he discovers a Primarch, a son, he assigns them a legion because that legion was made with that particular Primarch's gene seed.
Yeah, it's kind of like magic where the Primarchs have this aura that they give off around them, right? Like you see kind of mentioned where Horus Lupercal goes on that guy's ship and he is stunned. It's to the point where he can't kneel. Where if you're actually his the gene product of these guys, that aura is very empowering for them as warriors.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of reasons for the Emperor to do this.
Yeah,
And
well,
you
even in
also-
the first part of the book, it said when Horus actually shows up, it's like a light from heaven, like a beam and shit, and then all of a sudden Horus is there.
But that could just be he was teleporting, but yeah.
Or he's an angel.
No, that's
also the teleporters
that's,
make a lot of
Sanguinius. Is that who it
Yes,
is?
Yeah.
Sanguinius is the angel.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the angel. The even more beautiful one.
All right.
Yeah, and they look like I think somebody said it already, but they look like the Primarch that they are created after, which is why they refer to Axaman as Little Horus, not just because his name is Horus, but because he's the one that most closely resembles Horus
And
out of all the
Logan
Astartes.
is the first member of the Mournival to not be a son of Horus directly, right? So that's a sign of change, I think, was really interesting. All right. Moving on. I guess more. Yeah, because there's a lot here.
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch. Part one we've pretty much discussed is the first, they're slaying the false emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part 1. And then part 2 brings us into Spiderland.
Murder.
We get to meet more of our friends in the Emperor's Children, and we get to see more of the character of, Torgadon, and who's the other captain of the space, not Space Wolves, Luna Wolves.
I mean, there's a bunch.
Oh wait, in part 1, did Jubal die? I forgot.
Jubal.
Oh, they
Jubal died in the Whisper
that was in
Heads.
that was in section.
In the Whisper Head, yeah, but was that in part 1?
Yeah,
I think it was
so
towards the end of part 1.
That was on
that's a big one.
the first planet.
Yeah, because
6319.
they were
6319. Yeah.
Yep.
they were trying to squash like the last of the resistance on the false emperor's planet, and then I don't know, I don't want to say like too much because like I kind of know already, but like, so they talk about the warp, and if you're weak, what happened to Jubal will happen to you.
See, I don't know about that necessarily. I think it's more that some people are more susceptible to the warp. Some people are more easily influenced by it. And Jubal happened to be
psychers.
Yeah, well, yes, except for Jubal was not a psyker, right? He was just a space marine.
No,
He
could
just
have had some psychic potential latently.
He just went like berserk.
Right. But in that same like thinking, I would assume that any of the remembrancers nearby would have had a similar like reaction, because they're not space marines. They're just remembrancers that came through, right? So I'm like trying to understand what do you mean weak?
A reaction to what?
The warp.
Is it
like,
Samus?
Yeah,
right?
that wasn't necessarily a reaction to the warp. He was
reacting
possessed through the warp, not reacting to the warp itself.
There was an individual
specific
demon.
individual.
So to your point, Gendred, about the remembrancers, the demon was probably smart enough to know that the remembrancers were pathetic, weak humans, and there were bigger things around. And
well, there's also talk in the book of it not just being one, but like Samus was the leader of the spirits, meaning there was more than one, which I thought was really interesting. Mm-hmm. So it assumes, like, my assumption is that there are potentially like other people that have been possessed in that area. It's just an interesting like reflection. Well, they also said religion.
Like the reason of the Whisper Heads, like it's a place where the warp is strongest, like it's a weak point or something. Mm-hmm. The warp is strongest there. People are more susceptible there. But yeah, it's definitely
strongest
like
there on
religious.
That planet.
Yeah,
correct.
On that planet.
But I also like to think that he chose to possess, Jubal instead of the remembrancers, because like their whole job is to remember, and if he possesses an Astartes and is seen, they're going to kind of remember that and spread that. More people are going to be aware of this creature,
it's also it's like a thing of power. Like I don't want a remembrancer, I want a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To spread my hate.
Well,
like when I first read through it, I was like, oh, it's like the devil. It's a demon possessing something. But it's like Satan. More than that. Yeah. It was the whole thing was wild.
Yeah, no, I say basically Satan. Well, it's not literally Satan. We'll come back to that someday. But in terms of like, there was a soul system, there's a people with like a religion, and that religion had an arch demon figure. So like they had their own religion. You're supposed to get the idea that it's like very analogous to like our, Earth, and that they probably held on to like Christian, belief systems basically.
Yeah.
And that manifests itself in like an actual Satan figure.
And Cinderman actually said that very specifically. He said, this Samus is very much like what we had back on Earth in the Dark Ages when we and our Satan, when he called him Satan or something like that. He said it real funny.
Yeah, because they don't know.
But
They
not
mispronounce all
Satan.
kinds of old stuff because they don't know how to say it.
Right.
And they're
They
also
don't
speaking a
know,
different language, like they were saying earlier when we were doing the introduction and stuff.
Yeah, the
But then,
priest
so
there.
after this
They're
whole...
not technically speaking English; they're speaking Gothic. We just
Yeah.
are understanding it as English to read it.
Got you. Okay.
After this whole interaction with Jubal turning into a demon and shit, then like the afterwards, he's like, "What happened?" And then he talks to he talks to Cinderman, and Cinderman's like, "Oh yeah, like that's been happening for a while. We just don't talk about it." And I was like, "How many other people know?" And like Horus knows about the warp.
Yeah, Horus knows about a lot of stuff that he isn't telling other people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's some interesting things there at work because as Loken alludes to in several parts, like secrets are bad because the truth is all we have. Right. And so for Horus and, by proxy, the Emperor, right, holding on to information about like how the warp can affect people, that's pretty messed up, especially when it obviously occurred in this story.
It's happened enough times that they know about it, but we're still not sharing that information. It's like a need to know basis. If you interact with the demons, then you'll know about it. But then,
because at this point in the history of UK, it's not
common.
It's not presented as a major issue yet, and so it's more of a need to know thing at the moment because the more you know about it, the more susceptible you'll be to having to deal with it.
But also,
so it's better to not let everybody know that it exists, as opposed to being like, "Hey, guess what? There's demons."
Mass
and have everybody freak out.
Yeah, or like if people knew about it and they could start trying to like summon demons, or like people could be straight up malicious about it too.
The power, yeah.
Yeah. If you tell them like, no, there actually are these patrons out there that you can besiege for power. Like, fucking what?
Which we know, we kind of know, we're that's where this heads eventually, right? We thought like that's the sense you get from this book. And again, I don't know much beyond this book, but like it's almost like this whole thing is foretelling, especially when Cinderman gives Loken a book that describes this very thing happening of, a man turning into a beast in these old wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, becoming possessed.
Mm-hmm. And their skin bubbling.
It's definitely a thing that was known at one point and is now suppressed for the reason of the less people know about it, the more they feel like it's a safe deal.
But then we run into the owners of murder, and they already know all about the warp and chaos.
Yep. What was their name?
So I'm like, the Interrex, right?
The Yep. Yes.
Yep. There's them later too. Yeah.
Because then the whole onslaught of Spiderland, I was like, I don't want to read this at all.
Yeah, I really want my kids to read this book, except for those chapters.
I can't wait to watch
those are the best chapters.
It was really interesting to learn like their chemical makeup, because it's like they're just like encased in metal. Spiders encased in sharp metal.
Well, and like how they go about rebuilding the trees, and they're like mixing up this cement like stuff inside of some of them and like spitting it out to rebuild the trees. Like there's some crazy shit going on with those creatures.
It was a very odd race. I still have a hard time not just thinking of them as Tyranids. But that's
I still think that, like we were talking the other day, I think they are. I think they're just not called that at this point.
Like they had like gaunts. They had gargoyles, like they had warriors. Actually, I should say not gaunts.
Well, it's very. I think they're very clearly not Tyranids though, because like there's some lines like how they Tyranids don't have 8 legs and these spider creatures do.
No, I'm actually pretty sure that like pretty much all of your like main Tyranid biomorphs are all like 6-limbed, not counting a tail. I like read that and I started going back through like my Tyranid codex and stuff. And I was like, let me find one Tyranid with 8 limbs. And like I like could not.
So it's not to say they're not Tyranids, maybe, you know, just like the Sagittarius are so they're very human, like, but they're also not humans, right? They've evolved to in different ways. Like,
no, that's a different race.
What?
There are 2 different races on that ship that are intertwined now.
Yeah.
Well,
there's the human offshoot, and
right?
then there are the other aliens that they've enslaved.
Yes,
but I'm
talking
about the ones that ride around
ones.
the little centaur things.
Yeah, but even the human ones, they said they were thinner and they were more. They almost like described them like I would like a fantasy elf. They were thinner, more.
Yeah,
lives.
they do sound a lot like elves.
They were taller. They were like almost the size of Astartes.
Exactly. That threw me off. I was like, wait, nothing's as big as an Astartes, and apparently they were. I was like, wow, okay.
Astartes are as big as Astartes.
Older
up.
Older orcs are as big as. Orcs can get as big as cities. Okay.
How much do you know, I guess, about like the lore of the planet, like Dies or Telos? Like, because the trees are the lifeblood.
They never go back to murder. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
no, that's the only time that it's mentioned. The creatures, if anybody has read the Eisenhorn novels, he runs into creatures that they're definitely not the same, but they remind me of those creatures for sure. He's in like an alien environment and beats these like multi-limbed creatures that create like this architecture that like shouldn't be possible, and it messes with people. But that's what they have always kind of reminded me of when I picture them in my heads. So nice. I like the Tyranid argument. That's a cool one. You know, I've never thought about it that way. I've always thought about it, you know, the way I had.
I don't.
But
I don't know that they're necessarily straight up Tyranids, but I feel like at some point in the past, Tyranids interacted with them. Maybe not there. Maybe because they were sent there from somewhere else.
They were a space traversing race. Yes.
Right. So I think at some other point in another part of the galaxy, the Tyranids ran into them and absorbed part of their biomass into the Tyranid.
And that was just the splinter that
hive deal.
Which, the more I think about that, though, the more I have questions about the Tyranids just in general. I mean, I'll discuss this with other folks later because
it's also like a timeline
just going off
thing
pictures
too, because like only recently had the Interact, or I don't know, whatever. The Interacts banished this whole race to this one planet as like a refugee camp. Like
prison planet
for a prison planet. They wanted to preserve the race without making it extinct, but then
it's a museum.
A living museum. So before they got banished to murder, I feel like 100% other people probably have interacted with them before, found them, and taken their gene seed or whatever.
That's like what this isn't in the book at all because we don't see Tyranids in the book, but that's what they do. They steal DNA from other things they interact with, and that's how they become stronger as a hive. So if they interacted with them at any point in the past, it could explain why so many of them have like limbs that are essentially described the exact same way.
Yeah.
Tyranids are basically galactic scale strip miners of biomass. They just digest planets and leave them as barren, dry rocks.
Interesting. I don't know. It's almost more frightening to think of the Megarachnids being a space like traversing race. Like if they just fucking came here, they would just wipe out our planet because we wouldn't know what to fucking do with them.
Yeah. No, the other thing.
That's where you're wrong, though. Sorry, Gendred, because the Emperor will reveal himself finally, and he'll save us. So we're okay. Relax. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Don't worry.
Good to know.
But I was also going to point out that I didn't think that the megarachnids could be Tyranids because I don't think the Interrex would have been given the option of, fighting to a draw or whatever with Tyranids, where like Tyranids just keep adapting to whatever they're fighting. So if the Interrex were like so powerful and sophisticated, the Tyranids would have like grown and adapted, and like they fight to the level of their opponent like exceedingly well. So I just don't think that they would have gotten like trapped on that backwater world like that.
Yeah.
That's just not how the Tyranids evolved. So
no, yeah, I agree. I mis-explained what I meant. I think it's the other way around. I think the Tyranids interacted with them somewhere else in the galaxy previously. I don't think they're Tyranids, because that wouldn't make any sense. They wouldn't just be like, okay, well, I guess we're screwed now. They would not be just giving up.
Like if you
also, there wouldn't be trees and grass all over that planet. It would just be a rock.
Yeah.
They've been
there long enough. Got like eaten by the Death World, and that's how it got some like genetic coding to do some Tyranid-like stuff. Maybe. Yeah, I could see that happening.
So this chapter was like really, or this part 2 was really interesting because then it also kind of introduces us to like the inner workings of the Space Marines and the different factions and who's too cocky and which I thought was interesting, the whole battle and how they won, because I forgot whose faction came in hot and just ended up getting decimated first.
Two of them actually.
Yeah, the Blood Angels and the
Blood
children
Angels were first, and then the children of the Emperor came in to save them, because he's like, oh well, if I go save them, then that makes me look amazing because I did it without anybody else's help.
Yeah,
Blood Angels kind of got unlucky, where this was a death world, and like on contact, it wasn't a kind of death world where they could tell from orbit it was a death world. So there's different classifications for planets, and you don't have to guess what a death world is. But there's a lot of different kinds, but yeah, it just means you're going to freaking die there. And it doesn't necessarily make sense if you rock up to a planet and there's no intelligent or like organized resistance or civilization to just send like multiple companies of Adeptus Astartes to the surface immediately. So like sending one as a scouting party was very common in the Great Crusade, because it's just like, well, anything we do find is just going to see a bunch of like gods show up, kind of like how Spanish conquistadors were described on horseback with steel. And it's just going to be like such a mismatch that it's going to dissuade any fight, and like we'll just be able to leave, and like our custodians will take over. Yeah,
and there's a another, it's Iron Snake's novel by Dan Abnett, and that exact situation happens where this fleet is under attack, this planet's under attack, and they're taught if they pray to this altar, they'll be saved. And it's actually like a communications button because they're stuck in like the feudal ages, and they send exactly one Iron Snake, and he's enough to take to solve the problem and wipe everything out.
Wow.
So do you realize
I'm sorry,
what book was that?
It's the Iron Snakes, I believe, Brotherhood of the Snake. I can look it up real quick.
I haven't heard of that, but that's great. But yeah, it gives a good example. Like it backs up like what I'm saying, where it's like, well, why didn't they send more Space Marines at once? So it's like, well, they've literally conquered planets that look like that one from orbit with one guy. Well, why send thousands?
From orbit, like they said, they could see life. They knew life was on the planet, but it wasn't responding to anything. So they sent people down. And like they were like, we're trying to talk to them. They're not responding. They're hostile. We're trying to work. Like the communications they got back from the Blood Angels were like slowly devolved into like the final one, which was this planet is murder. Like
so
which is interesting. Because they tried.
I was just going to point out that the Blood Angels did not make a tactical error. The Emperor's children are fucking nitwits.
Yes,
children.
I loved
it. I don't like
it so much when who was it? Torgotten just like ripped into Eidolon and basically called him a dumbass to his face.
Someone who outranked him.
Well, so fucking Eidolon
talking
got
to a superior officer.
Because Torgotten like said Eidolon's Primarch just by name, and he was like, "You don't say that," whatever. Like, and then he turned around to the exact same thing and just said Horus. He's like, "Hold up, motherfucker! I'm the tip of the spear here, and I speak for him, and you need to back the fuck up." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And then that was the only thing that made Eidolon pause. I was like, oh, okay. He just respected the fact that the War Master's like, lead dog is here. Oh shit.
Yeah, speaking of War Master, my boy Lionel Johnson got hosed. He should have been War Master. None of this would have happened.
Oh, I guess
Stop dropping shit we don't know anything about, motherfucker.
I have a question. And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but like, is it the Mournival?
Mournival.
That's how I've always said it.
Mournival.
That's good.
Can you explain more about that? Anyone?
I mean, I think what you got from the books is what it is.
It's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, just advisors to Horus.
His counsel.
Yeah, for sure.
Unofficial. Yeah, unofficial counselors to the Primarch, to the War Master in this case, but in the Lunar Wolves, the group is known. Like, this isn't something that's in all the different structures. It's only a thing from the Lunar Wolves. Now, it's not to say other structures don't have their own sort of things, but it's very said clearly in the book that this group was born up out of the what is it called? They're like brotherhood thing, whatever. Their secret brotherhood.
It's like Cathonia or something.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Cathonia.
I forget what it's called. But anyways,
that's
like
the planet where Horus just grew up.
Yeah.
Right.
They,
Well, the Brotherhood's been around since long before, right?
It was a tradition on Cathonia.
Okay.
And then he just brings it along with his because when a Primarch is rediscovered and he's given his legion, originally all of the Marines are going to be from Terra, because that's where the Emperor made them all, and then it's up to the the Primarch to kind of set up and start getting Marines from his culture, his planet. So
yeah, because most of them would have conquered the worlds that they were from. That's actually what the Emperor discovers his sons all over the place, and most of them have just conquered whatever freaking planet they were on.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. So it's they have their own best friends and buddies who helped them conquer those worlds, and their loyal followers and soldiers and stuff. And so
they're already an established
leader
thing.
For sure.
Yeah, leader.
I believe
and these are
where
humans. These are human offshoots on planets, right? So essentially the warlord of that planet potentially becomes a Primarch.
You don't become a Primarch, you are.
You are.
So
okay.
One
so
thing
you have
I guess we can touch on is the scattering, just very briefly.
I don't
Because
know what that is.
the Primarchs were lost, and the Emperor finds them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just
That's
that it was
the
not
basic.
purposeful, that some weird fuckery went on, and they were taken as wee babies, and just appeared on planets all over.
The Primarchs were scattered.
If I'm remembering correctly, the Dark Angels, they're the first Legion, because I believe Lionel Johnson was the first one rediscovered, I believe, and that's how they got the order. But I could be wrong on that. But yeah,
I don't think that's how it works. Because I think Horus was the first, in that he actually, we said he grew up on the other planet, but they mentioned how Horus fakes his accent in the book. That's actually because he grew up on Terra with the Emperor as an actual dad.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he was discovered first. But in terms of when the Emperor was pulling out a pen and paper to rough draft, all right, what do I need? Number one, kill anything. Check. And then makes Lionel Johnson. So, yeah.
But then all of the Primarchs, the Emperor is Horus, you're my son.
Horus is the 18th or something.
He's way down there. I think they're 13th or something.
But he's the Emperor's favorite.
He's very much the favorite.
Obviously, he's the War Master. He was chosen. The Emperor decides to retire, and now Horus is in charge.
He had the shiniest bald spot.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
so then
go ahead.
It's almost, I wouldn't say retired. It's because Horus says this too. The Emperor has other things he needs to be doing. He can't just be leading the Crusades forever. He's essentially immortal, but that's not what he thinks is important right now. And essentially Horus sort of hints at this, but the Emperor's researching the warp. He's researching like what needs to be done. And he takes what he thinks is the right candidate as the War Master. And for him, you know, like some of the Primarchs are like bloodthirsty, and some of them are not like, but they're all warriors. And so he picks one, I think, that kind of fits the mold of what he thinks should be the next like leader of the crusade. And it's kind of like, it's an interesting parallel, because I think the same thing happens to Loken. Loken is picked because he's not bloodthirsty. He is, you know, they reference him as like becoming a naysayer several times, because he's not just a sycophant. A Naismith, that's right. A Naismith.
Yeah, he shows more humanity than any of the other Astartes do, in the fact that he is willing to think for himself and not just take orders.
And
he'll be like, hold on a minute.
questions.
That doesn't make any damn sense. Why are we doing that?
Because Horus needs guidance from multiple points of view. He has enough people that say, kill fucking everything, right? He needs somebody to say, hold up, why are we doing this? And Loken fills that role. Previously, and I wanted to ask about it, there was
Sir Janus.
Sir Janus.
Sir Janus that we meet for all of 2 sentences.
Yeah, and I want to ask about this. Okay, in the audiobooks, they pronounce it as Sir Janus, right? But it is Sejanus, like Sejanus in the books. And I was like,
he said both. He said right. He also said Janus. He pronounced it properly once and incorrectly another time. And I think they're just like, whatever. Who cares? We got 12 hours of shit to record.
Right. Yeah. But Sejanus was apparently like not just a Naismith. He was like actually like he had all the qualities of the Mournival. He essentially was the perfect like guidance counselor. I don't know what the word is, but like, and Horus feels his loss so truly. Like he keeps mentioning him later on. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he was. I think he was similar to the way Loken uses
Cinderman.
Yeah, Cinderman.
Okay.
You know, he's constantly going to Cinderman to ask him for advice because he respects his wisdom. And I think Horus was doing the same thing with Janus.
Got it. Okay.
Even though
he's got a whole group,
similar to the situation,
but he needs someone he can like talk to who's not going to immediately like, you know, say it's
somebody he can talk to off to the side and still trust that he's like, okay, this is just between us.
And you see that,
keep it that way.
You see that again when like when Horus asks for their opinions, like, you know, after he has that fucking fight with, who was it, Abaddon? Like, Horus is yelling at Abaddon, like they're fucking like having it out, which is so crazy. And he's like, get the fuck out. And he's like, if he wants, you know, if he wants my forgiveness, he can come back, but he better be on his knees. Like, holy shit. But
he better not raise his voice over a whisper.
Yeah. So like, you know, he sends out everybody else. He's like, you two stay. He's like the quiet one. And I forget what he called the other one. And then Loken thinks to himself, like, I don't know which one he thinks I am. Like, it's interesting because Loken still doesn't know his own place.
He doesn't know his own place. And then they also end up finding those little tokens of like the secret society team members, which I think is also important to mention. Yeah, the Brotherhood, and how Loken is very opposed to these secret societies, and then gets invited.
The lodges. Right. That's what it is. That's the word I keep trying to think of. The warrior lodges, which
there's
comes
so
from
many
Chthonian.
things in this book that are just like, oh yeah, and that.
Well, it's actually, I can touch on that.
Yes, explain, please.
Yes, please.
Oh, I was just going to point out that, like, just like a little example from the lore, but so like the World Eaters, my favorite faction that you'll meet much later down the line, they were like the premier close combat army, and so they developed this habit of their Primarch was from like a slave world. He was like a gladiator, and so he had a tradition of chaining his weapons to his arms, and so they began doing that as well. And you'll see, like, to this day, there's like actually specific Space Marine models throughout the line that have their melee weapons chained to their arm, and it's actually an homage to these warrior lodges where that technique was like passed, through like from chapters and stuff. And
and didn't Lucian do that with the fucking blade arm from the creature? Similarly.
Well, I actually want to talk about that too. Yeah, this is a little bit different. I mean, he just like basically takes duct tape and straps it to his wrist and just
because it cut his hand.
I'm gonna kill him. You cut me with this, I'm gonna cut you back. That's very Lucius.
He's fucking crazy.
He's actually one of my favorites. In terms of like when like my first introduction was like I played Tau, and then I got Orcs, and then my next codex was I got the like 4th or 5th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex. I was like a still pretty young kid, and I think that Lucius's page is one of the most horrifying things I ever like, saw as a child. And I won't get too into detail from there, but yeah, because that's like telling the future at this point. But he's quite the character.
I thought it was I thought the way him and his buddy, they're basically everywhere together when they're on murder. I'm blanking on his name. And when they run into
doesn't bode well for
Eidolon, was it Eidolon they ran into when he's like, what is that on your arm? And he's like, and just like flings it like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah, wasn't it like Lucius and Tarvitz?
Yeah,
yeah. And he's like, I told him not to.
Well, it's because Lucian did the exact same thing. He's like, you used all your charges on the tree, and Lucian's like, I told him not to. And then like an Eidolon turns and goes, what's that on your fucking arm? And Tarvitz goes, I told him not to. They're like,
the whole like killing on each other is so fucking fun.
Yeah, it's hilarious. They're just like gigantic children.
Yes, like that's the biggest vibe I got from Lucius. Like the way everything about the way he talks too, and like even Tarvitz, I think it was, like refers to him as like I find his like childlike manner endearing.
Well, and it's really funny because like you see different levels of almost like maturity among the different Astartes, because like you look at even just in that small group. Tarvitz is very reserved, and he does everything thinking about it. Whereas like Lucian just says, fuck them all. And he riles up the troops, and they just kind of have to go along at that point. Like he literally just
He is the Leroy Jenkins of Astartes.
He is. And it's amazing that he survived murder with that fucking attitude. Like literally they're like, all right, everybody get out your guns. And he holds onto his like fucking blades, and he's like, ha ha ha. And the other guys are like, okay, he's just gonna do his thing.
Oh my god, when they're like all dying, and he's like, I think I'm gonna take one of these back to the ship.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, it'd make a great training tool. Like, what the fuck are you on,
buddy,
dude?
we're not making it back to the fucking ship. Like, what are you talking about?
But like, they never even said that. Like, that's the funny part. They were like, they just kind of, that's just Lucian doing his thing. We're just gonna keep going. Like, it's almost as though, Loken even says this, they don't have fear. Fear is bred out of them. It's not a thing in the Astartes. So for them, fear of death is not a thing. Right? So like, they're just on a planet named Murder killing shit. And their buddies are dying left and right.
They have self-preservation, and like you'll see, like it's kind of a meme, I feel like, that they shall know no fear. But it's like even when you see things from Loken's perspective, sometimes he'll like register like a cold feeling in the pit of his stomach, and it's like, that's fear, dumbass.
Yeah, that is fear, but you don't know the word.
Don't know that's what that is.
Yeah.
It's just like
yeah.
I always think it's
fear was not bred out of them. The word fear was not introduced to their vocabulary.
Yes.
Well,
there
there's the whole theme. I guess I want to say theme, but like Loken, he'll like occasionally come back to the fact of like, what happens when the Crusades are over? What happens when we conquer everything and there's nothing left to do? Like, what do we do then?
Well, there's a precedent.
Who was the other guy? Who was the other guy that responded to that? He was like, it'll never be over.
I know his name.
I forgot who gave kickback.
I think that was Sigismund.
They got beaten almost to death for saying basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Ignatius.
yeah, it was Sigismund of the Imperial Fists. He is one of the people I just referenced, where he also chains his weapon because he fights some world eaters in a warrior lodge later. It's like, hey, that's a good trick. But yeah, that's the guy who's like, he's being recalled back to Terra with Rogel Dorn and their entire legion to just because, and you know, to his point, like, what are they going to do? It's like they're all conquering the galaxy right now. They're reclaiming all of these human solar systems, and they're going home to build the biggest fucking fortress and defensive position anyone's ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, why would you be doing like that? So, yeah.
Because the Emperor knows things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A guy who can see the future just told you to do that on Earth.
Yeah. Somebody knows something's coming and isn't telling you.
He doesn't tell you. So, yeah, precisely.
So then,
and Horus mentions that at one point too. He's like, he didn't tell me why he was going back. I feel sort of betrayed because he wouldn't tell me anything. And it's like, well, because he knows.
I feel like that's a big recurring theme. Is,
what do you mean?
Blindly take my orders.
Yeah, as the Emperor, do this, do that. Why? I'm not telling you. Like.
Yeah. But also, I think it's a really nice touch where it's like, I mean, we're reading a series called The Horus Heresy, and it's like this, I don't know, tautological. It's like that time travel paradox fuck shit where it's like the Emperor can see the future, and so he makes a decision, but that decision not to tell Horus that he's going to betray him leads, like, it plants a seed in Horus where he feels betrayed and like neglected by his father.
Yeah.
And it's just like where's the head? Where does this begin?
And you can see that breakdown, like the cracks in Horus's mask almost like happen when they're on that planet, and like the fucking, what are they called? I can't remember their name.
The Interrex.
Exactly.
Do you keep wanting to say like intersex?
No, I keep wanting to say the Sagittari, as he called them, but like essentially
Sagittarii.
Yeah, when they turn on them, right, at the end of the book, and he's like, "Why, Father? Why have you thrust this upon me? It's too much." Like, you can see like that Horus is not the be all end all warrior, warlord that you expected.
I want to touch. Yeah, I want to touch on that too. As coming from somebody who read a ton of books before the heresy was written. Because me reading Horus is like this ultimate big, like he caused all these problems, blah 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 blah. So it's just really really cool reading these books specifically, and getting to know Horus, and just it was a really cool perspective for me personally. So because like you said, he isn't just this brazen warlord,
Yep.
So I just thought that was really neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has feelings in the whole book. He never is like, yeah, we're going to kick their asses and I'm going to murder them. The whole book, he's like, I need to find a way for peace.
Yeah. He's
until he has to go back confidence. Yeah, sometimes. He is a bit influenceable.
Influenceable.
Yes, he can be influenced for all of his political machinations and trying to influence people around him. Yeah, but he does just want to kill the fuck out of that guy who betrayed him at the end of the book. Like it's trouble.
Yeah.
Well, that's why like, what's his name? Rogel Dorn. He gave a vote of confidence to Loken because he knew he needed someone to influence his brother in a positive way. And it was like, he asked, Loken, do you know why I did that? And he was like, no, I didn't. And he explains the whole thing. I'm like, wow, okay. You're essentially telling, a member of the Mournival that you kind of like, we need you to shepherd the War Master.
Guide him in the right direction.
Yeah. Such an interesting
Make him choose the better answers.
What did you all think of Abaddon it's Abaddon?
Abaddon?
Yeah, Abaddon. Abaddon.
So Abaddon is the first captain, right? Yeah. So I like Abaddon. I think from all I think you're supposed to like him. He's very boisterous. He's obviously like, on 2319, right? He's like, I'll meet you at the feet of this emperor. And like, he's talking to Loken, who's just a captain, right? Like, he's like,
see who can get there
I'll
first.
see you there.
Lol.
And like, he shows respect to people that are like even below his station, which is kind of cool. But he is a bit of a fucking like badass.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like what
Yeah.
I think one of his interesting scenes I want to hear your thoughts on is what about when the Remembrancer asks him about the coin?
Wait.
Where-
Remembrancer asks Abaddon about the coin?
Which one asks him about the coin?
The one that Loken. So I forget his name, but the scene is like Loken is talking to his like poet guy.
Okay, that's
Very-
Ignatius.
The
Ignatius.
brash one?
Ignatius.
Yeah, after he had told them like, "Yo, watch this guy I don't trust," right? About Erebus. That's not the start of the second book, is it? Am I like blending these now?
You're in the wrong
Yeah.
section. That doesn't happen in the first book.
Back next month.
Great.
Yeah, I don't want to speak too much on Abaddon because I know what his full name is, and I don't want to get into that
Yeah.
right now.
I mean,
It's too
we
early.
can go into part 3, which is
I
when
think Abaddon has a bad haircut.
I
personally.
agree.
So the end of part 2, beginning of part 3, the Interrex come into play, and they're like, "You idiots! Did you not hear our warning broadcast of like you shouldn't go onto this planet and whatever?"
See, and that's the very funny thing to me, right? So like you hear like later on the Interrex go, "Oh yeah, so we developed this whole like language talking with music, using the
We
aria
sing to each other.
right? Because it's like because we found that like leaning on spoken word as a method of communication was holding us back." And then they turn around and they're just fucking like playing trumpets at the fucking Astartes like it's gonna mean something. Like the whole time, like, didn't you hear it? Like, no, motherfucker, we didn't hear it. We're your same people. Like, what do you expect? And they turn around and they're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, they did hear it. They just didn't figure it out until before
They didn't
it
register
was too
it
late.
as a language or a warning.
Horus did. Well, Horus recognized it as music,
right?
And as
a pattern,
essentially a mathematical pattern.
Yes,
but they didn't figure it out until it was already past the point of it mattering.
And the funny thing to me is like if you could like just take a step back to like our world, where we live in reality, like when we send out probes and shit, they will play music, they will do mathematics, and they will have spoken word. They do like multiple types of communication that we send out, across the galaxies or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, why did we not do that? Like, what the fuck?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was also thinking about that. I was like, man, how is this spacefaring race so dumb?
They're so fucking haughty. Like, you didn't hear the music? It told you what not to do. Like, no, we heard it. It's just music. It doesn't mean anything. Like, can you give us some sheet music so that we can fucking read it or something? Like,
show me a math problem and I'll understand it.
As crazy as like that whole thing sounded, I think our astronauts today would have like figured that one out. Like actually.
Well, not only that, but like again, the Blood Angels did not do anything wrong. They landed and died. It was circumstance. Like they landed on a death planet and didn't know what the fuck was happening. The fucking children of the Emperor, or the Emperor's children, like they were just stupid, haughty and stupid. And like, so their deaths were completely avoidable and Horus tears into them for that shit. But like, I think our astronauts would be in space being like, nothing down there is responding. There's a lot of life. It doesn't seem intelligent. Moving on. Like they wouldn't have even landed.
Actually, I take back what I said about the Blood Angels. They are dumb.
Yeah.
Because we just said about our astronauts wouldn't yeet themselves down to a planet when they had like these weird signals they could investigate first.
Right. But that's not what soldiers do. Right. And we're talking about like the Crusades really are, and like they say that the Crusades are over, like at one point, but it's really still a continuation of the Crusades, and that's really what it is. We're sending out Space Marines across, the known universes and beyond. We're sending out a bunch of fucking grunts. Not many of them are as smart as I think we would like. They're just really tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're really good at being shot and surviving.
Yeah, like when
they're
going back to the Whisperheads, right? Like they're like they Loken and his crew rolls up on the Whisperheads, and like this fucking human soldier's like, yeah, we've been dying down here, and like Loken's like, we've got it from here. He's like, hold on, don't you want some intel? He's like, nah, you just been dying. Fuck off. We got this. It's like, god damn, Loken.
Yeah, they got it. You couldn't do it. We know.
Yeah. And then they roll up. What is it? What are the soldiers and like the extra heavy plate armor? They just like shrug off all the artillery that's getting fired at them. That shit was crazy. Yeah, the Terminators. Oh my god.
Oh, hey, I have a Terminator model. It's not painted and it's very old, so it's not to the correct scale as the other guys I just showed you. But like, actually, it's spray painted white. One of them. So these are going to be models I painted, or this is a model I painted when I was a kid, so don't judge me. So it's like a regular old-fashioned space marine. Yeah, they're like smaller, and then this is the Terminator that was like the same scale to try and give you I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll prop them a bit so you get like more of a frontal view.
It's just little baby.
Oh.
I mean, they're comparable. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the same height. It's just like they have a lot more like armor, much thicker armor.
Yeah, a lot more. Yeah.
Actually,
we
can probably just.
Hamp was looking. I was gonna say one more thing because we're like at an hour and a half ish. But
it's 11. Yeah.
Yeah. Time's moving along. So one more thing that I wanted to ask was like, what did everybody think of the Sagittarius? The like that this like race that was like ready to accept us until shit went sideways. Yeah. I'm never gonna remember that. That's just fucking the Interrex. I'm gonna have to write it down.
So we were in the meeting, or Horus was in the meeting, and we were like, yeah, we're gonna find peace or whatever and chill with this other race, and then all of a sudden the mysterious fire happens and somebody steals a weapon.
Yeah.
But I thought that conversation that conversation between Loken and the Interrex guard was really illuminating, because it's like, here's a race that has fully embraced the existence of chaos and is actively keeping our Space Marines at an arm's length because they fear they are infected with this chaos.
Yep.
Obviously, it turns out they're not, but then it's like, oh no, you tricked us.
I'll stop you right there, because I posted this in a Discord conversation somewhere, but like, I think they are. I think the Space Marines are a bastion of chaos. Like they are a warring force, and like they really are harboring so many secrets. Like I think they really are agents of chaos, even if they don't know it.
Yeah, I don't think they know it, but they are essentially semi-controlled chaos.
Yeah. And I think that's also part of why the Emperor chose to step back from it, because I think he's sort of realizing, I've set chaos loose upon the universe. I need to step back.
He's done this once before, what you're referring to, in the beginning with the Thunder Warriors.
Oh, I don't know where that lore comes out.
That doesn't fit into this book at all. But he's done a similar thing before. The Astartes exist because the Thunder Warriors needed to be killed because of similar situations.
What?
Yes, when I said
that's not going to be in this book series at all, but it is a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's like pre-Horus Heresy, pre all of the Great Crusade, pre-Space Marines, the Emperor had already reconquered Earth and all of its various tribes. he did that with like a proto superhuman mutant thing that he made, but yeah, he basically murders them all with Space Marines after he figures out how to make Space Marines.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like, I need these things to help me conquer all the planets, and then after the fact, he's like, I might have fucked up. They're a little too strong and stupid. So let me make something stronger and more intelligent, but not necessarily perfected.
Actually, I think the Space Marines' biggest departure and difference was their durability. So once again, I described them as their main personality trait is being able to be shot and survive.
Mm-hmm.
But that was where he wanted something better. Because part of the issue with the Thunder Warriors is he gave them a whole bunch of mutations that were like super radioactive and gave them like super cancer, and so like they were doomed to be short-lived, miserable things.
Yeah, they were going to die anyways, but
He needed to make sure it happened sooner than later before they ruined everything.
Right.
Before their brains melted. They had all this military tech attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. So I get back to the point where I don't think the human race is really all that great in this universe.
Are we the baddies?
Yeah, 40k. There are no good. The closest thing to good guys in 40k are the Tau, and they're not good guys either.
No.
But they're the closest to like trying to see the good in everybody.
So back to my other question. So hold on. The Interrex, thank you. The Interrex are, thank you. I had to write it down. Are they a playable race in the tabletop?
Nope, they got eliminated.
Okay, good to know.
Illuminated or eliminated?
Both.
Yes.
Maybe both.
Yes.
Little column A, little column B.
So towards the end of part 3, we know who has the weapon.
Yes.
Maybe I was just reading too fast, but who knows a lot about? Is it Erebus?
Erebus.
Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm like, I just figure I'm butchering all of their names.
No, that was good.
So he is what, a word bearer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Word bearer.
Can you explain to me what that is?
It's his legion.
Yep.
What do the word bearers do?
So Lorgar is their Primarch, and they're just another Space Marine Legion like the Luna Wolves or Blood Angels. That's, I don't want to speak too much, but that's what they are. They're just another Space Marine Legion.
Now we can give like a little top-down detail.
That's
not too much.
I was actually re-listening to the books like these past couple days, and they talk about where Erebus comes in. He's becoming friendly with all of the Mournival, and he actually he gets in a cage and like he fights all of them, the sword fighting, and he fights.
Oh, that was a good exchange too.
Lucian, whatever, and he actually loses to Lucian, which I honestly think he did on purpose. But
he did.
And then Lucian has to fight Loken, and Loken just takes him down in one hit. But the whole thing is like Erebus is trying to ingratiate himself with the Mournival, and I don't understand where he even came from. Like, why did he show up?
So that is the point. Erebus is not even his actual name. Nobody knows his real name. Erebus was a priest that he murdered in cold blood and stole his identity as a teenager.
Classified here in the book as the first chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's basically the equivalent of Abaddon being the first captain of his legion.
Okay, thank you.
They just call them chaplains.
Yeah, they have a much more religious vibe to them, which is problematic for the Emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, isn't they are trying to eliminate, when we were talking to the Iterator, who is it? Sanguinius, right?
No, the Iterator is Ignatius. Wait, no, Iterator?
The Iterator, shit.
Cinderman. Cinderman is the Iterator.
Cinderman. Yeah, so like when we learn more about chaos and stuff, and Cinderman is like, we tried to, like, we're trying to breed religion out of everything.
Yep.
But then you see pieces of it with Erebus being first chaplain, and then even with the remembrancer, the super famous one, Keeler, the woman who takes pictures, and she has this secret place in her room where she like worships the emperor like a god. And
that only happens though because she almost gets murdered by by the dude who got taken over by Samus.
By the demon.
There's like a pile of dominoes here.
She was sent on that route in order to deal with her trauma because she knew they were lying to her, but she didn't have any other way to overcome it because Loken was too dumb to figure out her little deal in time.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, what she was doing might have worked.
Right.
The Emperor protects.
He does. And that's the other part is like, I don't necessarily like you're laughing over there, Telos. But like I don't necessarily know that religion is the bad thing here. It's just an avenue that we've tried to stamp out.
And she, they're not the only person that worships the Emperor like a god. And there's certain literature out there, and there's certain actors influencing people to worship him as a god. So, if we're talking
Erebus
about
is a deceiver,
if we're talking about a legion that's more religious than most, so
interesting.
So our book ends with nobody. Well, we don't even know who Erebus is working with because it just says he, by the light of a candle, he puts the weapon away.
Hold on. There, I actually really liked what was said there because it was actually really interesting, the phrasing of what he was doing and where he was. Hold on. Air hummed down, rusting ducts and flues. Darkness pooled in the belly vaults of the vengeful spirit. In the bilges where even the lowliest ratings and proto-servitors seldom strayed. Only vermin lived here. Insect, lice, and rats, gnawing a putrid existence in the corroded bowels of the ancient ship. Like, holy shit, if you're going to do something bad, apparently this is the place for it.
Erebus is a rat.
But also what an unspace marine like place to be conducting business.
Right?
Who is this guy?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Who is this man?
Who's this man? This man's a bad man.
Yeah.
The baddest.
But yeah.
So then the final piece is like, Loken's like, we don't know who did it, and I don't believe we stole a weapon or something, or like.
Yeah, that's
he's
the
like,
start of
I
the
don't know what
chapter.
happened.
Yeah,
but Erebus says we gotta go to the Dagobah system.
Well,
so
Sadie was like, what was Tekken? And like Loken was like, a weapon, so they claim. And Loken's like, we didn't take it. We took nothing. The killing was for nothing. And I was like, oh damn. Loken and Horus.
It's got such a weird name. The Anathame.
Anathame, is that what they call it?
Anathame, yeah.
Reminds, yeah.
And it's what, like a bioweapon or something?
No, it's a sword.
Am I allowed to say what it is?
It's a cursed blade. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a sword.
Yeah. They describe it as a cursed blade.
I think it's a demon weapon.
Yeah. By the light of a single candle, he held the strange blade up and watched how the glow coruscated off its edge. The blade was rippled along its length, gray like napped flint, and caught the light with a glitter like diamond. A fine thing, a beautiful thing, a cosmos-changing thing. Yeah, this is like this seed that just starts to bring everything else down.
Are you talking about the seeds of heresy?
Mm-hmm.
Are they sown? They have been sown.
Oh yeah. Yes, I think they have been sown quite obviously. So is everybody excited about the next book?
I'm already reading it.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I haven't even started it yet.
Now is that one False Gods or Galaxy in Flames?
False Gods.
False Gods. Okay.
False Gods.
Galaxy.
The heresy takes root.
Galaxy in Flames is 3.
Yep, that's 3.
Now that we know a little bit more about Erebus, I'm definitely really intrigued as to like what the hell? Who are you? Why are you doing
And
this?
don't look it up unless you want everything ruined, though.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was talking to Dice. Don't look up anything.
He's another one of those characters where if you look it up, it's all out there and it's
Game
all in
over.
one place,
Yeah.
so you're not going to be able to avoid it because it's going to be the
I kept
first thing
looking
that
up
comes
characters because I wanted to know their names and understand a little bit more about them. And it's like, oh yeah, this guy was the downfall of that, and this guy fucking ruined that. And I was like, Jesus, fucking spoilers. I just wanted a name. maybe start with here's his rank and who he worked for. Fucking hell, but the Wikipedia
that doesn't work
pages
either
tell
because
so
it
much.
changes on some of them so much.
I know. I hate it. I want to know, but I don't want to know.
Yeah,
I want to know, but there's also like this entire universe is so heavy.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
There's so much. When I first started reading and they said the name Loken, I immediately went and looked because later on he's involved with. Well, I don't even want to say, but I knew I recognized his name.
He's
from
a known character. He's a known individual in the universe.
He's a Grey Knight. Yeah.
Well, he's not a Grey Knight though. They wanted him to be, and he turned it down.
Oh right, that's what. Yeah.
But
they wanted him to lead the Grey Knights, and he turned it down.
So here's the.
I recognized his name, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, I thought I recognized his name, but I didn't realize it was from that, and now that's ruined the fact that I know that he. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm not looking anybody else up in these books.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, don't look up don't look up anything. Not anything, because everything you read will spoil something. And it's not intentional. Yeah. It's just like there's so much that goes on with every character. You could read a sentence about Loken and already fucking like ruin the next 6 books, just like not even expecting it.
Yeah, and these books are such a big part of the lore in general to 40K that you'll run across people like I've known about Erebus for a long time because I already know his whole story that had nothing to do with this book. I mean, it does, but you know what I mean? Like it had nothing to do with me reading this book. I already knew about him years ago. And so as soon as his name got brought up, I was like, oh, damn. Okay, how far are they going to go in this book?
Yeah, because in the first one, it's only like he's just briefly touched on as our now, I guess, main baddie. Kind of.
He has an entire book dedicated to just him, but it may just be a short story.
I mean, I feel like all these books have been about him almost. Like at least so far, it's been focused around Loken's experience that's going on here.
No, not Loken. I meant Erebus. I think I think that he may have a whole book to himself, but I don't remember.
Oh wow. Okay.
It may just be a short story that goes over his overall existence, but I don't remember.
V8? I don't want to know.
Yes.
I don't want to know. This is spoilers. I don't want to know. Everything's a spoiler. I don't want to know.
No. I just want to know if he had. I can't remember if he has a whole book or if it was just like some short stories, or he's just involved in so much crap you hear about him a bunch of different times. Because
I'm just reading.
He moves a lot.
I'm reading the back of the book.
False Gods?
False Gods, yeah. On the moon of Davin, it's clear Horus has a personal stake in the matter, which may have clouded his judgment. With dark forces rising against them, have the Primarch and his warriors been drawn into a trap?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
If something is ever phrased that way, the answer is yes. Like it's just it. Now the question is like, what kind of trap and how's this going to go?
Okay. He doesn't have anything specific to him by himself, but he is involved in 19 books.
Wow.
He's like too influential of a character almost to like give his perspective in a way.
Yeah.
Where he's such a driver of plot.
Erebus? Holy wow. Okay.
Yeah. He's in 19 books, but none of them are like the story of Erebus. He's just in there messing with people.
Well, because like I don't know. Arguably, the Horus Heresy is like the story of Erebus.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Some people blame him. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll all get to decide who we blame.
We won't get his
I can't wait to get to
we won't
that
get
point.
his backstory I don't think we get his backstory in these books, but we'll get most of the important stuff in these books.
All right.
I'm intrigued. I'm excited for the second book. I'm excited for our next meeting because this was really fun to have other people to talk to.
Yeah, finally get like everybody, to the same point to where we can read it, even though some people already know what happens beyond. I really appreciate everybody reading the books and jumping in.
I can't wait till we're done with these so I can talk more freely.
There's 53 books, V8. We're not going to be done.
I'm not reading it. No, I'm not reading 157 books and short stories.
Not in order.
I do appreciate people not spoiling it and like keeping it reined in for now.
Yeah.
I made a couple boo-boos, but we brought it back quickly enough.
Yeah. I'm just going to try to, Men in Black flashy thing myself a little bit and go on to the next book.
Yeah.
I don't think we went into anything too deeply that you'll remember it.
No, only a few chapters in. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay. All right. Well, we're probably going to call it there. Raid
I
out
think that's
to
a
somebody
good
else.
spot. Yeah.
Guys, you wanted to jump into an after party and watch a TV show?
It's getting late on the East Coast, but would people be interested? I have a couple things. Like I could show you like a Hammer and Bolter episode where we see like some Lucius and 40K, if that's not too spoilery. I could also just show you some of like the new like the Space Marine TV show they're making.
It's not out yet?
Oh no, that's there's like 2 episodes currently out.
Where can you watch that?
It's on Warhammer TV.
Ooh.
It's like a
subscription platform
with not a lot. I can't in good faith recommend it unless you're in the competitive 40K scene, because it also gets you access to like rule books and stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Is that where Astartes disappeared to?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
That's actually free to watch on there.
Well, I just knew when he got hired, the guy that did it got hired by Games Workshop. It disappeared off YouTube.
Yeah,
so I figured it went there.
He actually hasn't been doing a lot for them, and the thing that's coming out right now is like his first big Space Marine animation project. That's similar to like that thing that you saw. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Anybody got anybody specific they want to raid out to?
No.
Okay.
I think I see Cash. Yeah.
Casual's playing my summer car. He's the only one I see on right now.
All right. We will raid Casual Elephant. All right. Give me just a minute to kick that off. And tell us, I'm going to need a list of reference materials to read related to all this later, including Brothers of the Snake.
Yeah, not a problem. I can do that for you.
Awesome.
For sure, yeah.
Well, thanks, everybody.
More books to read.
I'll upload this to YouTube tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Right. Beans. Hope I didn't cuss too much.
You're fine. You were fine. I think we all did very well.
I think this works with.
I contain myself.
I like this layout, and then I like that you had the book.
Yeah.
Up there, because that is super helpful. I like that Dies is painted the whole time.
I took a lot of breaks, but thank you.
Well, I was about to chime in and be like, "Are you dry brushing right there?"
This is a wash.
No, I know. Before when you first started, but I'm like, I'm not gonna make this about painting, even though.
Oh, feel free.
I would like to make this about painting.
Me too.
Well, it's enough about painting, and like the book actually worked out nicely because we had 2 people drop. So Kiki wasn't here and Hemp wasn't here, and that's where their cameras were.
Oh, you can
right
just
there.
put it up. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So next, if we have the full crew here next time, I'll probably put the book up at the top left next to the logo. It won't be as big, but it'll be there.
Yeah, it'll still work.
All right. Cool. Raid happening
we'll
in just a moment.
Works.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, wonderful time.